Hey, how's it going, guys? Now, I don't know about you, but I have massive nostalgia for the 1980s decade. I think this is due to the fact that I was born in the 2000s, which means I grew up in the 2010s, and according to the 30-year nostalgia rule, I'll obviously have a nostalgia for the 90s, 80s, which back then was 30 years ago. Now it's 40 years ago. And so, yeah, that's probably it. Another reason why I think is because my parents, they were both born in the 70s, which means they grew up in the 80s. And when they told me about their childhood in the 80s, I would think that it's very cool and made me wish that I grew up then because everything seemed so much better. The music, the culture, the friendships you make. And yeah, I guess I got a little bit jealous, but oh well. Anyway, and my dad especially, he was really into music, still is, and uh, as such, I would listen to music with him, and a lot of it was in the 80s. And through that, I became acquainted and really started to enjoy 80s music. And before long, I started identifying music by whether it's 80s or not. Uh, you can't really say it with any other decade, maybe except with the 70s with disco, but the 80s especially, if you hear a song and you think it's 80s, it's almost certainly 80s. That's a very specific sound, which started making me wonder what exactly makes a song from the 80s truly 80s, and that's what I'm gonna be talking to you about today. So, one of the things that makes 80s music really 80s was how glossy and glam it was. Now, glam rock really started in the 70s, but really came into its own in the 80s with a lot of music from that time being specifically that genre. Now, there were obviously many genres uh, in the 80s, including many new ones being created, but glam rock in particular was very popular and was the dominant genre from that time. Another thing is the increase of synthesizers and drum machines. What I mean by that is, until the 1980s, a lot of the sounds that were made were natural from instruments and stuff like that. But then, in like, let's say, the late 70s, new technology was being made which synthesized sound from instruments, in which the musicians don't have to actually play their instruments to make, which massively simplified things. The problem is that it made the sound so artificial and unnatural, which brings me into my next point, which is that artificiality is another aspect of what makes an 80s music so 80s, because at least in the 70s, sound sounded a lot more natural, and as such, some of the sounds from the 70s sounds a lot more like modern day sounds than the 80s do, because there are some sounds which sound specifically 80s from that era, which you couldn't really say about 70s music. So another thing is the drum machines, which is another thing that was made around that time and became popular in the 80s. It was used by bands such as There Might Be Giants, who were known for their songs Build a Little Birdhouse in Your Soul, which is a song that I used to listen to a lot when I was a kid. And even though it came out in like 1990 or something, which is wild. And so a drum machine is basically what synthesizers is, but specifically for drumming. And it was used by musicians who wanted to have like a drummer in their band, but they didn't hire an actual drummer, and they just hired a drum machine, which made things a lot easier, as do the synthesizers do. Now, I would say another thing that made 80s music so 80s was MTV and music videos. Now, MTV, for those that don't know, is something that first came out in the 1980s, which is a program where it basically produces specifically music videos for people to watch. And it is also in this era that music videos of their own really came into their own by themselves, because before then there existed music videos, but they were really low quality and very simple. The 80s is really where music videos kind of became an art form, let's say, especially by musicians such as Michael Jackson and Madonna. They really stepped up their game when it came to music video quality, and that came in the 80s. So yeah, basically that's all the stuff that made 80s music sound so 80s. And if you like this video, then like, comment, and subscribe. Bye guys.